blatant cheating. Altering the condition of the board, blatant cheating.
It's not a popular cricket team, and a lot of their antics have upset a lot of people.
When he hits it, you could hear the clonk from Perth, Australia to Perth, Scotland.
They are sent home with further sanctions, obviously, to follow.
So Steve Smith comes out to bat, and the whole of the Holly stand just keeps, "We saw you cry on the telly, cry."
Recently, we touched upon some notable, if lamentable, moments of cricketing clashes involving high-profile players and officials. Well, this week, the focus is on some of the biggest scandals in the sport, which have left us all spluttering. It's just not cricket. From clickety-ponting to Sandpapergate via a number of other avenues, this is Sport is History, how it all played out. Hello, I'm Marcus Buckland, in the company once again of Mark Pugac, that fantastic former opening batsman. Have you actually played any cricket this summer? Are you planning to put these pads on?
I'm going to play this. I'm going to play the next 3 weekends, but I'll be very happy if I do very little. My cricketing hero is my late dad, because he started a cricket team. And the great thing about cricket is you can love the game without being particularly good at it. Dad, forgive me. I mean, he wasn't brilliant, but he was good enough. But he was a great organizer. But by the time he got to my age, or sort of mid to late 50s, he was very happy if he didn't bat and didn't bowl, but ate a very good tea. And that is basically what especially this weekend, that's my primary ambition, is I don't really have to do very much. Watch the kids play. They do all the hard work. I'll be captain, have a drink, and I want a really, really quality egg cress sandwich at tea.
Well, I hope you get that. 2 things. As captain, don't start moving the field at a key moment after what we discussed regarding Mike Gatting and Shakil Rana. And also off the back of last week's programme, when you are batting, if there is an edge, whether you've edged it or not, or the guy at first slip is flicking his fingers, do you always wait for the umpire's decision, or would you walk?
No, I walk. Basically, I walk, yes. I remember once not walking and my dad was furious with me. My son plays lots of cricket and I said to him, "Do you walk?" And he went, "No." And I went, "Well, your grandfather wouldn't approve of that." And his argument is, I get plenty of bad decisions, when I'm given out caught behind when I haven't nicked it, or I'm given out LBW when it's pitched outside leg stump. So I'm going to leave it up to the umpire. And I was like, okay, I can see that argument. But by and large, especially the cricket I play, if I nick it, I'll walk. Yes.
Yeah,
what about you?
No, I think earlier in my career, because a little like you, my father sort of taught me, you've got to do the right thing. But actually, then you get a couple of bad decisions, and if you're not very good anyway, if you're walking and you're getting bad decisions, that average of 10.6 is going to drop down to 4.9. So I'm staying for as long as I can.
I remember once, very rare, one of the rare occasions I made 50 quite early on, a spinner. It spat up at me and it brushed my glove and went up in the air. And I think the field, it wasn't the wicketkeeper, I think maybe, short leg caught it, and nobody appealed. And I thought, well, there's no need to go. There is no need, and my conscience is clear. No one's appealed here. If they appealed, it would have been a different one. I'm staying here, and I made 50. I thought, well, that's your problem.
It is. I must confess, there was one afternoon where I knew I'd edged it, and I didn't walk, and I wasn't given out, and I was getting a lot of jip from the wicketkeeper and all those near to the bat. And the very next ball, rush of blood, I tried to hook a pretty straight, fast delivery, and it went straight up in the air, and I was caught. And there was a bit of me that, well, I kind of knew I had done it because my head was scrambled. I knew I should have been out. So hopefully, things even themselves.
Oh, I'm a wicketkeeper, although pretty much retired now. And when people nick it and they don't walk, I'm furious.
Oh, yeah, I bet you are.
Oh, I am. And it's happened twice. I can remember clearly. And both times the person went on to make 70 or 100, and they were on about 10 at the time. I was raging.
I bet you're a very vocal, annoying wicketkeeper, aren't you? Just chipping away every now and then.
I was described the other day when I kept wicket a couple of years ago for this club. I'm now chairman of the club. With a smile on his face, the batsman did say at tea, "That was like batting with the radio on behind me."
Well, listen.
Fair enough. I wasn't sledging. I was just enjoying the game.
Yes.
Because it's a great game.
It is a great game, and sometimes
with a lot of skullduggery.
A lot of skullduggery. People do go over the edge on occasions, and that's what we are going to discuss today. In a moment, I'll focus on Sandpapergate, which brought the Australian game to its knees back in 2018. You just want to go a little further back in time, though, to set the scene for us.
Yes, because the thing is, because cricket is the game it is, and it's just not cricket, and it's a game for gentlemen, it's a game that the English took to the colonies, and all that is true. People, I think, have always put it right up there in terms of moral probity and how you behave, which actually obscures quite a lot the reality of what cricket was in its very, very early days, which was quite often blatantly a vehicle for betting. What? What's he talking about? Honestly, 1771, there was a man called Thomas Daddy White who was playing for Chertsey against Hambledon. Now, Hambledon is where the birth of cricket. Have you ever played at Hambledon?
No, but
no, I've played there. It's lovely.
It's got its place in history for sure.
It's got its place in history. Got a great pub at extra cover, square leg, depending on where you're batting. And he used to bat a piece of wood which was so wide, because it was obviously before the laws had come in to say how wide a bat can be, that they couldn't get him out. But he couldn't score any runs either. And everybody was getting very, very annoyed because there were bets from the opposition on the result. They were getting annoyed they couldn't get him out. They wanted to win the game. But more to the point, they were betting on the result. There used to be a pub on the corner of Oxford Street called the Green Man and Still, and that used to be basically where people would meet to bet not just on the result of matches, but also on what individual batters would score. Now, we would call that spot fixing today, wouldn't we? We would simply call that, is Marcus Buckland going to get more or less than, let's do a spread of Marcus, we know his ability, 45 to 55. Go on, I'm really creeping up.
Thank you very much.
Shall I keep
Appreciate
going?
that. Yeah, a bit higher, please. Go on.
Higher. And so that was basically spot fixing. And there was a game in 1817 between England and Nottinghamshire, and players from both sides had been paid by gamblers to lose. So you had this farcical situation where bowlers were trying not to take wickets and batters were trying to get out.
I'm not laughing.
No, but and there was a man called William Lambert, one of the best players of his day, was actually banned for trying to fix the result. So all I'm saying is the game, it's a wonderful game. It's a magnificent game. But all this thing that your father and I, both our fathers were teaching us, if you nick it, you must walk. This is a gentleman's game. Well, you go back to the 18th and 19th century, it was a game rampant for betting and for not necessarily for match fixing, but certainly in terms for spot fixing. Yeah, for match fixing as well. And of course, one of the greatest of all time, W.G. Grace, was an amateur Dr. Grace. But he made much more money than any pro ever did, because he would have, even if he didn't have a bet on a game, he'd have got his mate Marcus to have a bet on a game for him. And of course, he made lots of money from appearance fees and so forth. So all we're saying is that cricket has always had a facade of gentlemanliness and probity and standards, but it's always, frankly, had a very dark underbelly of gamesmanship, of match fixing, of spot fixing, of betting. And the two have always sort of been slightly odd and at times uncomfortable bedfellows.
They really have. I mean, there are so many examples that we could call upon in this particular series. I mean, I always think of Hansi Cronje, the tragedy really of Hansi Cronje, just one of a number of stories. Really interested to hear about that bat. I mean, however wide it was. You're going to talk a little bit later about a very infamous bat used by Dennis Lillee.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get to that. But first we'll do Sandpapergate, because that was blatant cheating. You see, what we're going to talk about, a lot of what we're going to talk about is gamesmanship. It's just within the boundaries of the laws of the game. So we've got one thing which is gamesmanship, and we've got one thing which is cheating.
Yes.
Sandpapergate is cheating.
It's cheating. Absolutely, 100%. There's no doubt about that. Just to set the scene, this was in March 2018. It was the third test match between South Africa and Australia in Cape Town at the beautiful Newlands Stadium. I mean, what a gorgeous backdrop you have there. The principal characters involved, Cameron Bancroft, the Australian captain, Steve Smith. And although initially his role is not fully appreciated, the vice captain, David Warner, has an awful lot to say about this, and, an awful lot to own up for. And the other player, well, not the player, the coach for Australia at the time, Darren Lehman, I actually have a little bit of sympathy for him because it was proved that he was not directly involved. He did not know what was going on as things unveiled themselves during the course of that afternoon. You can see him looking through his binoculars, trying to work out exactly what is happening. But ultimately, he has to take the blame as well. Now, the series is level at 1-1. Two fantastic sides.
Yes.
Let's not beat about the bush. Australia, South Africa for a long time have been dominant forces in the game, and they are both on a very high pedestal at this stage. Third day of the third test match. After the 43rd over of the South Africans' second innings, Cameron Bancroft is spotted by a television camera rubbing the ball with a small yellow object. And immediately all the other camera operators via their walkie-talkies start to say to each other, something might be happening here, focus, focus, focus. And the head guy, the head camera operator at the end of it all says, oh, we caught them. We saw this sting and we caught it in the bud. They're very proud, understandably, of what they spotted very quickly. So suddenly all eyes are trained on Cameron Bancroft. Eventually this comes to the attention of the umpires and they call him over. And Bancroft initially shows them basically the cover of his sunglasses, a black cover. You know, you can slide your sunglasses into a little cover to
into a little
them.
thing that you clean your sunglasses with.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, a pretty innocent looking piece of material. But it's not true. He is misleading the officials at that stage because already on camera, it has been noted that he has shoved something down the front of his trousers. The umpires have a chat with him. They don't really know what's going on. They don't offer the ball to the South African team because they could have had the option to change the ball. They could also have awarded the South Africans 5 runs, permissible under law 41.3. Yep. But the umpires are happy with the ball. The batters at that stage are happy with the ball. South Africa were 129 for 2 with a lead of 185. The significance of this particular passage of play, though, is that Mitchell Starc was poised to return to the attack. And he'd already induced 2 collapses in the series up to that stage. And 43 overs there or thereabouts.
Reverse swing.
Is the reverse swing hotspot. Anyway, play continues. And at the close of play, South Africa actually have reached 294 for 5. But by then, no one cares about the cricket. Everyone is looking very, very closely at the footage. What exactly was Cameron Bancroft doing and what was he using? Because,
of course, in this day and age, social media, that would blow up immediately. There's no way that anything like this now will ever stay hidden for long, because if traditional media doesn't get it, and traditional media did get it because television did, you know, the social media would, and the combination of the two means it's a wildfire.
They go to the press conference. Eventually, there's a long delay as the Aussies behind the scenes try and work out what they're going to say. But eventually Bancroft and Smith turn up for the press conference. Bancroft admits to altering the condition of the ball using a yellow adhesive tape to which dirt and grit had become attached. That's essentially what he says he's been doing. It's another 5 days on before he finally admits it's finally proven that it was actually sandpaper.
But it's that night. It's that night that he admits it, does he?
He admits that he's been attempting to alter the ball. Smith, the captain, admits that he and the leadership team knew of the plan. Smith says it was
leadership team.
The leadership team. Smith says it was a big mistake, but that he would not be stepping down. At this stage, I think they think that they might be able just to ride through the incident and it's all going to eventually blow away. Well, it doesn't. Bancroft is charged with a level 2 offence of attempting to alter the condition of the ball. Smith is charged with, quotes, conduct of a serious nature contrary to the spirit of the game. He is banned for 1 test and fined 100% of his match fee. Similar punishment for Bancroft, though he's only fined 75% of his match fee. At this stage, David Warner, the vice-captain, is largely absent, although because the leadership team have already been implemented, we know that he's got a large part to play in this as well. But then it really kicks off because the Australian Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, calls the incident a shocking disappointment. I've seen the press conference that he gave. I mean, he Australian cricket, this is at the forefront of their national identity. These players are all role models. And he makes it very clear he wants stronger action to be taken by Cricket Australia. The Australian Sports Commission requests that Smith stand down straight away. And the cricketing world is very quick to condemn all those involved. Well, the next day, Cricket Australia's CEO, James Sutherland, confirms that Smith and Vice-Captain David Warner have stepped down for the remainder of the match. Tim Payne takes over as captain. Smith and Warner still in the team as players at this stage. South Africa go on to win the test by 322 runs after bowling the Aussies out for 107 in the fourth innings. I mean, their heads have gone. They know they're in the midst of a maelstrom. Losing a test match is the least important thing at that point. So a couple of days later, Smith, Warner and Bancroft face these charges and are officially sent home with further sanctions to follow. So really, they've gone home.
Yeah, that's a really serious punishment at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, prior to that, I always remember Willie Johnston, the Scottish footballer, being sent home from the 1978 World Cup and thinking, oh my goodness me, how awful must that be? You're sitting on the plane, you're going home. You have been
in disgrace.
You have been disgraced so publicly. But they are sent home with further sanctions, obviously, to follow. The fourth test match is then played. South Africa win that by 492 runs, which is Australia's second heaviest defeat ever.
Their heads really have gone, haven't they?
They have. And the South Africans clinched the series 3-1. Well, as things continue, Warner is found to have been at the heart of the scandal. He received a 12-month suspension from all international and domestic cricket. He apparently was the player who showed Bancroft exactly what to do with the piece of sandpaper, and he's told he will never again be considered for any leadership post. He's public enemy number one. He has subsequently spoken about his struggles to regain the respect he lost on that occasion, eventually described his actions as inexcusable and deeply regrettable. Smith is found to have known about the plan, which he admitted to on that first night in the press conference, but because he failed to take steps to stop it and told Bancroft to hide the sandpaper in his trousers out on the pitch at the time and made misleading public comments. Subsequently, people are frowning very much at him. Same ban as for Warner. He's told he won't be considered for any leadership roles for another 12 months after he can come back into contention for playing again. And even that would depend on the views of his teammates and the public as well. Smith admits to a failure of leadership, my leadership. I know I will regret this for the rest of my life. I'm absolutely gutted. He's in tears. It's one of those famous press conferences.
Wow.
I'm sure you'll remember it.
Yes,
we've sort of seen Tiger Woods' mea culpa, and Smith's right up there. The tears are coming down his face. It's all
and he says, I let my dad down or something,
it's distressing because cricket had meant everything. A lot of people say, stop these crocodile tears. They're only crying because they've been caught.
No, I think they were genuine tears. No, I'll give him that. They were genuine tears.
I think you're right. Bancroft, he's found guilty. He's banned for 9 months. Like Smith, told he'll have to wait at least 12 more months after that before being considered.
I don't think his test career has ever recovered, has it?
No. Of the three of them.
Of the three. His
career never recovered at international level. He was due to play for Somerset that summer. Obviously, the contract is rescinded, and both Warner and Smith are unable to play in the IPL that summer as well because of the fact that they're banned from, everything except essentially club cricket. They are encouraged to play club cricket to maintain their feel for the game.
But they couldn't play any sort of international cricket.
Absolutely. And they also have to undertake 100 hours of voluntary service in community cricket. And just going back to Darren Lehman, because
he's a good guy, Darren Lehman. He's coach of Northants now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And essentially, if you're the coach, if you're the prime minister, if you're the leader, you've got to take responsibility, even if you don't know what's going on. I guess that's a failure in itself if you don't know what's going on. He was officially considered not to have been part of the plan, but said he was, quotes, embarrassed and disappointed and hoped people would give all three players a second chance. And he decided to step down after the series, saying, quotes again, the feeling is that Australian cricket needs to move forward and this is the right thing to do. Yeah. And Mark, as you'd expect, it leads to a review of the culture and conduct of Australia's professional cricket teams. The inquiry is set up to design and find a means by which supporters of Australian cricket and the wider community can effectively refresh their commitment to the sport. Alan Border welcomes this. He says the Australian cricket team itself is not a popular cricket team and a lot of their antics have upset a lot of people.
When Steve Smith's ban was up, the next time they played an Ashes series, the first test was at Edgbaston. Brilliant atmosphere. If you've never been to Edgbaston, you've got to go, particularly for an Aussie test. So I went with my son. I went, right, we're going to go. And he said, I'm going to boo him. every time his name is up, we're going to boo him. I went, well, you can boo him, but it's you're much better to ignore somebody you don't want, because then they'll realise, oh, that I don't mean anything. If you boo them, you just rile them up. So Steve Smith comes out to bat, and the whole of the Holly stand just keeps, we saw you cry on the telly, cry on the telly. I'm laughing. I think that's quite funny. Then they boo him. He makes 100 in both innings.
He does.
I'm like, stop booing him.
Yeah.
Not because I don't think of booing him, because you're making him better.
Just a couple of other interesting points. Mark, ahead of the fourth test match, Tim Payne, who's now taken over.
This is in South Africa.
Back in South Africa, so straight after the incident. And the South African captain, Faf du Plessis, they shake hands, and this is a gesture of goodwill and respect. We're starting again.
Somebody got something hidden in there.
Well, du Plessis, who had expressed sympathy for Steve Smith and said he was a good guy, caught up in the wrong place at the wrong time. He goes on to be found guilty of pool tampering twice, in 2013 and 2016. And just in terms of the sanctions, I don't know whether you feel that a year's ban for the three of them, or 9 months in Cameron Bancroft's case, was justified. But a lot of people felt that the sanctions actually were too harsh. Shane Warne condemned the trio for, quotes, premeditated cheating, but believed that public reaction resulted in excessive penalties.
I think a year's absolutely bang on. It was blatant cheating. Altering the condition of the ball, blatant cheating.
Yeah, but
and
a year?
lying.
A year?
Yeah. And then, well, quite often, the hiding it is as bad, if not worse, than the crime itself.
Mark Nicholas, who, of course, has been one of our great broadcasters and a former very fine first-class cricketer and captain of Hampshire.
Now chairman of the MCC.
And now chairman of the MCC. He agreed with Warne and said clearly the captaincy had to go, and equally clearly the vice-captaincy. The punishment that has followed has been extremely severe. And I cannot help but think of Smith and Bancroft. And the Indian commentator, Harsha Bhogle, said, I honestly do not believe any other country would have handed its captain and lead player a 1-year ban for attempted ball tampering, which is perhaps a reflection of how they'd have dealt with things in India in particular.
What if it had been their captain and one of their best players? Yeah.
And, there's one other, just an interesting aside to the whole business. Former Aussie captain Michael Clarke is one of those who suggested that others were clearly involved.
Others in the Aussie team?
Yes, it wasn't just Smith and Warner and Bancroft. Jonathan Agnew spoke of contradictions in the official narrative. And in 2021, Bancroft himself hinted that some of the other bowlers knew what was going on, and Cricket Australia had another look into it. Nothing further was deduced.
The bowlers and the wicketkeeper obviously see the ball close up. So if the condition was being altered, they would notice it. Now they might just go, oh, the condition's being altered. And they're not very curious people. And maybe they didn't ask any more questions. But yeah.
We know that that's what we must do.
It seemed completely beyond belief that the Australian cricket team had been involved in cheating. After all, our cricketers are role models, and cricket is synonymous with fair play.
I think it's okay to name names here. Robert Croft, who was one of my favourite players. I've always had a soft spot for Glamorgan, and of course he played extremely well for England on a number of occasions as well. And he did once tell me the story that when Waqar Younis was playing most effectively for Glamorgan,
brilliant fast bowler,
there would be times shortly before Waqar was due to come back into the attack, again, that hotspot period where reverse swing might be most effective, that Croft or one of the other Glamorgan spinners might throw up a few little friendly deliveries that would be dispatched into the car park or onto the road surrounding Sapphire Gardens or wherever they were playing, enabling Waqar, perhaps, who was fielding, on the boundary, to slowly go across, find the ball eventually, and do various things to it. I mean, this was happening with the Glamorgan. I'm quite sure it was happening with every
the ball's
county
in the
on
car
the
park.
circuit.
It's hitting the concrete anyway.
Yeah.
The ball's hitting the car park's in the concrete. The ball's hitting the advertising hoardings. It's changing the condition of it. When fielders go out into the deep, they've got brilliant arms, but not all of them can throw it that far. They bounce it into the wicketkeeper. So all that, absolutely absolutely kosher.
Yeah.
So, this is this grey area. It's not just the bowlers either. In the days when they've changed the technology a little bit, but the days where they use hotspot for edges on bats, and so a little glow would appear, when you saw the replay, some batsmen lubed up their bats so as to nullify the thermal signal on the hotspot if they got a little nick. So, so suddenly the third umpire would go, well, I can't see anything on there. Well, if I put enough lube on it, that's why you can't see it, because it's just deadened that hot spot. This is what we're saying. This is all in the margins. This is all playing the percentages.
Well, it is. And you can almost admire the intrigue, the cunning planning that's going into this sort of thing. And of course, we've had the whole business with Saltburn and what's been going on there with, clicketing fingers and an extraordinary number of catches behind the crease. What I find interesting, Mark, is that some people are almost saying, well done, that's clever. But it's not, is it? I mean, I think we have to make it very clear that if you step beyond a certain mark,
if he has done what he's accused of,
the top.
It's not at all. I like this one, which was just very sharp. Do you remember David Hooks, blonde flowing left-hander Australian batsman, sadly no longer with us, terrific player. When he was batting for South Australia in a Sheffield Shield match against Victoria, and he was batting with the tail, i.e. the worst batsman, 9, 10, 11, and all the fielders were on the boundary because they wanted to stop him hitting boundaries. They wanted him to take just a single so that he'd be off strike so they could bowl at the bad batsman. He would run 2, but he would deliberately run the first one short. So he wouldn't run the full distance he was supposed to. So it only counted as 1 run.
And he was sent back.
No, but he meant he got back on strike every time. Yes. And so that was within the laws. So they had to change the laws of that because that was within the laws. That's what he did. So that, things like that, quite clever. And what happens is when you push the boundaries of the laws, they change the laws. So we've talked about they've changed that law to make that illegal, as we talked about body line. And also in the old days, in one-day cricket, when it got to a tight finish, you just put everybody on the boundary. Remember Mike Brealey doing that? Yeah. Well, that's why they bring in the 30-yard circle now? And you have to have various people inside or outside the circle. So every time cricketers find a little soft spot and push it, they go, no, we'll change it. Another very famous time they changed it, which actually was quite funny, was it wasn't actually an Ashes test match. This England played in 1979-80 in Australia. I think it was a 3-test series, but it wasn't, the Ashes weren't up. It was off the back of a Packer series.
When Mike really had a beard and we did really well.
Yeah, he did really well. Once there was peace in our time, the Aussies said, well, will you come back and play a series against our first 11? And England went, fine, but we're not going to put the Ashes up because we've just beaten you and you're coming here in 1981. Botham's Ashes. And they said, fine, so we'll play 3 tests. They played a test match in Perth, and Dennis Lillee, the famous fast bowler, came out to bat with a bat made by his friend Dennis Monaghan, made of aluminium. And I'm thinking, well, that surely was against the laws. Not at the time. He'd used it before. It was obviously a publicity stunt. So, I don't know, I think it's Bob Willis batting. Look at it on YouTube. I promise you, when he hits it, you could hear the clonk from Perth, Australia to Perth, Scotland. It is such a tinny noise.
Well, so Bob Willis is bowling. Yeah. An aluminium. I do vaguely.
Yeah,
well, I remember the
row, clonk. And Mike Brealey goes up to the umpires and goes, I know it's within the laws, but this bat, here we go, will alter the surface of the ball. And that is against the laws, and that's unfair. And the 2 umpires come together and go, he's right. I mean, he's bloody clever, this Brealey, which he was.
He was.
What did Botham say? He had a degree in people, I think.
Yeah.
Bloody clever, this Brealey. And they signal to Greg Chappell, the Aussie captain, You're gonna have to bring out a wooden bat. And Lily's absolutely fuming. And Greg Chappell comes down the stairs with a wooden bat. And Lillee loses his temper. And he flings the aluminium bat about 40 yards across the outfield. And Greg goes, here's a wooden bat. And what do? They change the laws afterwards that a bat has to be made of wood.
The only thing that strikes me about that, yes, of course, it's going to change the ball.
Yeah.
But would that not make it harder to bat?
Well, yeah, but it gets, possibly, but I think it gets so misshapen. Steve Harmison said once that Freddie Flintoff was so strong that he could squeeze a ball out of shape. So therefore, you'd have to change it. You know, they're always putting it through those stupid little ring things, aren't they? So they spend their life.
You might not know the answer to this because we have touched upon it before, but obviously the time that Trevor Chappell bowled the ball along.
Yes, absolutely.
Have they changed the laws to make that illegal?
Yes, they have since. Yeah, they have since. Yeah. So basically, it was a one-day match between Australia and New Zealand. New Zealand needed 6 off the last ball. Brian McKechnie was batting. Trevor Chappell was bowling. His brother, Greg Chappell, was captain. And Greg says to Trevor, give him a pay railer, mate, will you? And Trevor goes, I can't do that. And he goes, I'm your captain, in brackets, your brother. And he bowls a, daisy cutter, like literally just rolls it along the ground. Obviously, you can't hit that for 6. Brian McKechnie's furious. That pretty much caused a diplomatic incident. And I think Richie Benner goes, it's the most disgraceful thing I've ever seen on a cricket ground.
Marvellous.
He was in his white, off-white or beige jacket on Channel 9.
There were those occasions when something outrageous would happen. A bit like Bob Willis more recently on Sky.
Yes, it was.
God rest his soul. When England had been really bad, Bob would give this withering monologue as to what went wrong. And Richie was absolutely brilliant. And actually, Jimmy Hill in football circles. Yes. Remember when Spurs were kicked off the pitch by Barcelona in a European semi-final in 1982, and I came home and Jimmy, his beard was quivering, and he said, we have just witnessed one of the most disgraceful things I've ever seen on a football pitch. And I know
Richie was like that, wasn't he?
I love that. That was great television. And also we touched upon Brian Rose in a previous episode, but is that now illegal? Because he declared their innings after 1 ball.
Or 1 over or something. Yes. They've had to tighten all these up. And I talked about W.G. Grace at the beginning. He was the one. Now, it may be an apocryphal story. Obviously, we don't know. But there's a story that he one day when he was at his height, he was clean bowled, and either 2 stories. One, he said, windy today, isn't it? Well, apparently the story is he said, windy today, isn't it? He said to the umpire, who then said to him, yes, make sure it doesn't blow your cap off on the way back to the pavilion. Or 2, he said to whoever had bowled him, they've come to see me bat, not you bowl. But the famous, I'm with the wicketkeeper on this because I'm a wicketkeeper. Johnny Bairstow at Lords was a plonker when Alex Carey ran him out. He went walking down the pitch. The ball was live, and Carey had already warned him. Yeah. W.G. Grace did something similar. In 1882, there was an Australian called Sammy Jones who played the ball, went out to Grace. Sammy Jones says he caught eye line of Grace as if to say, the ball's dead, I'm going to go and do some gardening. Gardening's when you come out of your crease and you just, you do it because you've got nothing else to do. I mean, I go, I'm a gardener, I know what I'm doing. I've just seen them do it on the telly.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen them do it. Viv Richards did it. I'll prod that bit there. Yeah. And Sammy Jones went, ball dead, I'm going to go do some gardening. And Grace, Sammy Jones says, yeah, fine. Gets out of his crease, and Grace runs him out. There's a massive row. And that row helps spark one of the greatest billion-dollar industries of all time. The Ashes. It's 1882. That's the series at the end of which England lose, and it's the Ashes. It's the announcement in the paper. The Ashes will be cremated and taken to Australia. That series. That's the sort of incident. That was the sort of encapsulation of the rivalry. So W.G. Grace, for all his long beard and for all he was a massive eater. He was a big lad. And he was also a massive drinker. A lot of whiskey and soda at lunchtime. Okay. Maybe that's where we went wrong.
Well, I was going to say, like most county cricketers, maybe not, but most club cricketers, certainly. The more you can eat and drink, the better.
Yeah, exactly.
Sandwiches that you always yearn after.
Oh, sandwiches. They're coming this weekend. So, as we've said, there are so many incidents like this. You want to mention John Lever and the Vaseline?
I'm just going to quickly mention John Lever because actually I had never heard of this particular incident. I feel rather bad not to have done until I researched it. This was on an England tour of India in 1976-77. John Lever took 7 wickets in the first innings of the first Test match in Delhi, 3 more in the second, and the Indians are getting a little bit suspicious. It's not though until the third Test match in Chennai that Bishan Bedi accuses Lever of putting unusual greasy marks on the ball, and they conduct an investigation, and it eventually turns out that Lever has been using a Vaseline-soaked gaze, or is it gauze?
Gauze above it to stop the sweat running in his eyes.
Yeah, exactly, to stop the sweat running into his eyes, and that is considered to be a perfectly legal, acceptable move, and nothing further comes of it. The other one that immediately sprung to mind for me was Mike Atherton, the dirt in the pocket controversy in 1994. This was during a test match against South Africa. Gatting is spotted on several occasions putting his hands in his pocket, coming out, he's got some dirt. And he's sent before the match referee, Peter Burge. There's all sorts of conversations. I remember Jonathan Agnew, actually, who'd just become the BBC cricket correspondent, being particularly strong here and saying if Atherton is cheating, as appears to be the case, he should lose the captaincy. And he'd only just become captain. In the end, when Atherton goes up to talk to Burge, he says to him, I was just using the dirt to dampen down the sweat on my hands, which is not apparently what he had told Ray Illingworth and Keith Fletcher, the England hierarchy. And Burge later says, if I had known the truth, that there was something more sinister going on, I would have been much harsher in my actions and I would have advocated for Atherton to lose the captaincy. But he got away with it. But Mark, it happens all the time. And of course, these days it's so much harder to get away with anything because there are so many cameras.
Well, like Sandpapergate.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other one which you might have heard of, which has become a sort of verb, to mancad somebody. Mancad was an Indian cricketer who saw that Bill Brown was leaving his crease early. Bill Brown, the non-striker's end. So he's not facing the non-striker's end, and decided to run him out. Apparently not once, but twice. Completely legal. It is gentlemanly. It is in the spirit of the game that if you are backing up too much, and it's particularly obviously when you're on a run chase and you're trying to win, that you'd say, if I was bowling and you were backing up too much because you needed 15 to win off the last over, I would, first ball of the over, I'd see you and you're way out of your crease before I bowl. I would go, Marcus, because I'm a gentleman and you're a gentleman, I am officially warning you, do not do that again.
At which point, I'll smack you in the face with my bat.
And if you did that for the second time, I would be within my rights to run you out. But the problem is when people don't give a warning and they do it first time. And so, plenty of people do. People go, that's disgraceful, that's unsportsmanlike of the bowler. Well, is it not unsportsmanlike of the batsman to try to be cheating by trying to get a yard or two down the 22 already?
Yeah.
So hey, back to my grey area again, my gamesmanship. But it is considered acceptable to give you a warning, and that if you persist on doing it, I can run you out.
I think that's perfectly fair.
I think so
you've
too.
got to have the warning, but thereafter, because you're down the wicket. That's not fair on the fielding team.
No.
Just in terms of all the other accusations and allegations and the ball tampering, Shahid Afridi has been done for ball tampering and pitch tampering. Yeah. The ball tampering, the traditional way of mussing things up. Pitch tampering during a test match in Faisalabad against England. I want to say 2005. I might not be right, but a gas cylinder.
It was Faisalabad. It was with Gatting.
It brings out the worst in people. Yeah. Faisalabad. A gas cylinder exploded near the boundary, and all the players went across to have a look. And while that's going on, Afridi has a quick look around and decides to go onto the pitch and scuffs up an area of the pitch he's just by a good length.
Where he's going to land his spinners.
Yeah, he gets his studs and scrapes the whole thing, and he got done for pitch tampering to go with his ball tampering. So you know what?
It's like people scuffing up penalty spots.
Oh dear, shocking. Anyone can do anything at any given time, MP.
Well, that was terrific. Thank you particularly for the Sandpapergate, which was well worth doing at length, because it was pretty appalling. But I think what we've talked about there is where people have gone way beyond, and that's cheating, and where people have just used a little bit of their own. What's the word I'm looking for? I think it is really gamesmanship. I mean, it is funny, that line about, we talked about whether you should walk, i.e. if you know you've hit it and the wicketkeeper catches it or the slip, you should go. But as they say in Australia, we only walk when we run out of petrol.
And there, in a nutshell, is Australian moral philosophy.
There it is, yeah. Advanced Australia Fair, we say. Thank you very much. Please get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you now that we're back into the swing of things post-World Cup, about what subjects you'd like us to cover. We are going to do something on the Tour de France. We're going to do something on England's 4 captains in the cricket summer of 1988. But please get in touch. Sport is History at spiritlandproductions.com. Sport is history at spiritlandproductions.com, because you always come up with some ideas and suggestions that we probably haven't even thought of. And anything, particularly our County Mayo episode told us that things which are deeply rooted in communities and societies and have a cultural impact, which is a bit what we're talking about actually with the cricket as well, always resonate really well. So please do that. What are you off to do? How's your golf game?
Oh, golf is struggling, Mark.
No.
Played Monday, blamed the heat, and it was brutal.
Well, you've been blaming the heat for most things.
You know,
yes.
I got a great bit of advice, and I thought I cracked it. Somebody said to me, just on the way through, just make sure your hands are pointing at the target. It makes sense until you try it. Based on where my ball was going, the target was about 300 yards further left as to where it actually should have been. But it's still a work in process.
Of course it is. Well, life's got to be a work in progress. We have to have something that we are aiming for.
Oh, yeah.
And I am aiming for tea this weekend. That's what I'm aiming for. Of course you are.
The egg cress sandwiches.
I'm aiming for
egg. Stuck in.
I'm going to get stuck in.
But don't tamper the ball with them.
I'm not going to tamper the ball. If we're batting second, that's easy because I'll be batting down the bottom. If we're bowling second, being the senior pro in the team, I can put myself in a position where I'm surrounded by youngsters to do all the running. Either way, I'll be very, very happy. Just to put on my whites and to hear the noise of leather on willow, not leather on aluminium. I'll be very happy. He's Marcus Buckland. I'm Mark Pugach. We'll see you next time.